Hello everybody, Christian from Treasure Town here, and we're back with some more ancient coins. I'm down in Dallas, Texas with Spencer Miller right next to me. I have about $250 of ancient silver coins that we're going to be learning a bunch about the history, just taking a look at what these coins are. I've somewhat caught the ancient coin bug thanks to Spencer, so I appreciate you coming on today, and I think we'll be teaching people a lot about the material in front of us.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
Okay, so I think we'll start, we talked a little bit about how we would be structuring the coins and the questions that I ask. It's not going to be a super long video, but just to get some good info on what we've got here. So I believe that these are two Denarius, or plural Denari coins. One is a Diva Faustina, and the other is going to be an Antoninianus Pius coin. So was it common to have, a husband and wife maybe featured on separate coins, or how did it really, why is this in front of us?
Yeah, so Roman coinage sort of takes its roots from Greek coinage during the Hellenistic period, so the period after Alexander the Great's death in the Greek world. It was not common, but it did happen that you would sometimes see coins, particularly larger tetradrachms, with portraits of husband and wife together, but that was very, very uncommon in the Roman period. I think Mark Antony struck some of those coins, but not very common in the imperial period. But what did happen often is that emperors, particularly if their wives were popular, would strike coins for them, and that's exactly the case here. Antoninus Pius, his wife, Faustina the Elder, who was on the left, died very early into his reign, 3 years in. And she was beloved by the people, so a large series of coins were struck, mostly in silver, such as this one, commemorating her death. That's why the legend is Diva Faustina, deified Faustina. The D was an adjective, and Antoninus Pius actually loved his wife so much he, in addition to putting her on tens of thousands of silver coins, built a temple to her in Rome.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, that's definitely a testament to the strength of their relationship.
Yeah, very. And actually, their daughter went on to marry Marcus Aurelius, so the imperial line continued.
Okay, wow. Yeah. No, it's cool to have that. The history part is like something so fascinating about these ancient coins. I think if we take a step back, we're going to be looking at mainly Denari and then Antoninianus.
Yes.
And, what sort of place in society, I've heard, what, is it like a day's wages is a denarius, or is it a month's wages, or what sort of, was the value of these coins? And I know the Antoninianus was like less valuable than the denarii in actual metal weight, but they said it was going to be worth more. Could you give a little more info on that?
So converting modern money into ancient money is actually pretty difficult because some things that the ancients valued a lot are cheaper now. So, for example, food costs more in modern society than it did in ancient societies, but something like clothing, even cheap clothing, was incredibly expensive in ancient society. So sometimes when we see comparative prices, it's hard. The denarius was 1 day's wages for the common Roman legionary, and that's a pretty good barometer of what it was. I would say, if I had to give a rough estimate of the denarius's purchasing power in modern US dollars, probably around 50 to 100, maybe a little bit more.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, no, it's people always say that there's inflation, but I guess these are probably worth a little bit less than 50 or 100. So in that case, maybe you'd be better off having spent it and not. But I guess at this point, probably time to move on. We've got a Septimius Severus denarius, and then I believe this one after it is also a denarius from him, and they look a little bit different. Maybe it's just the strike, but I think the reverses, well, I guess they didn't really care. Did they care about the die orientation? And then, is there any difference really between the back here? I mean, one holding a staff, would they just do a bunch of designs and not really tell anybody what the designs were going to be? I'm asking a lot of questions at once.
So just to briefly start with Severus himself, he's a very, very interesting emperor. Came to power in kind of a time of troubles and civil disorder. It was called the Year of the Five Emperors because the throne was up for grabs. He was the first emperor of North African origin. In fact, I believe the only emperor of North African origin. And I think he spoke Punic as one of his native languages in addition to Latin. But he was a very warlike emperor, campaigned a lot against Parthia and in northern Britain against the Picts, who became the Scots. So you can see, he is a very aggressive posture and a long beard. That became very common in the 3rd century for emperors to come from more of a military background. In terms of the reverse types, fashion sort of changed Earlier on in the imperial period, on the reverse of silver coins, there would often be a goddess or a personification of victory, sometimes even the emperor himself. On the reverse with a legend. Earlier in the imperial period, it usually celebrated the emperor's title, so tribune of the plebs, consul for the 15th time. But then, as the imperial period wore on, we get into the 3rd century, you see more and more, if it's, say, the goddess Eternity, the legend will just read Eternity instead of the emperor's titles, which became confined to the front.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. No, thanks for all that perspective. How many would people just have tons of different reverse types, or was it, I'm thinking in the States, you have some like the Roosevelt dime that have been like that forever, and then you have the, state quarters where there's 50 in 10 years.
Yeah. So it varies. Certain emperors, so Tiberius is a pretty notable example of not varying his reverse types. Almost every single denarius of Tiberius bears the portrait of his mother seated on the back with the legend Pontifex Maximus. And that was the only real reverse type that he used during his reign, and he reigned for 23 years. And that coin today is known as the tribute penny. But as other rulers, there are probably at least 20 or 30 different reverse types. And in fact, it's not as common as you would think. Ancient collectors trying to build a set of every reverse type of a given emperor. I haven't really heard of that. I'm sure it happens. But for some emperors, especially one like Severus, who has ruled for, 20 years, there are a ton of different reverse types that you can collect.
Fascinating. No, that's really cool. And I guess a follow-up question. So I believe that this is the son, did we say? And that would be Caracalla. And, when I bought this coin from you, it said issued as Caesar. So is that, what's that saying? Is that saying the style of what he, how he's looking, or what does that mean?
So Roman emperors there would be sort of a delineation between the senior emperor, known as the Augustus. Later, this would become very formal and institutionalized, but in this period, usually it was still familial. The senior emperor was the Augustus, so in this case, Septimius Severus, the previous two coins that we've just seen, he was the Augustus, but he raised his children to Caesar. Caesar is sort of the Roman equivalent of, say, Prince of Wales in this period. It was, if you were designated Caesar, you were the deputy emperor in line to succeed. It's sort of like vice president. Although, since it was often done in families, usually the Caesar would be very young. I think Caracalla, in this coin, he's struck when he's maybe 10 or 12 years old. But he was appointed Caesar to guarantee the succession, so that when Severus died, there would be no qualms, no one would be arguing about who the next emperor is. It's the Caesar, it's his son.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so fascinating.
And as you can see, he looks very young in this coin, because it's a youthful portrait. And one thing that you'll find interesting is that the coins of the Augustus in this period, so if you look at the coins of Severus, one of the legends will be Aug, short for Augustus. But you won't see that on Caracalla's coins because he's not Augustus yet.
Okay, wait, let's...
It should be on the obverse, yeah.
So you get Severus, Pius, and then,
Pius Aug. Yeah,
Aug.
So there's the Augustus. Cool. And if you look close enough at the Caracalla coin, you'll see C's somewhere in the legend.
Yeah, let's see. Well, I guess maybe
the
I'll save time.
Legends are smaller on that, yeah.
Yeah. Here we've got a large selection of different ones from Gordian the Third, or Gordian III. I don't even know how you would really say it, but I think some of these are Antoniniani, and then others, are they all? No, I think there's a Denarius.
There's one Denarius, and there's an interesting story behind that. So Caracalla, the emperor we were just talking about, during his reign as Augustus, when he was sole emperor, he introduced the Antoninianus, which was originally supposed to be twice a denarius. Inflation had really started to take off in the Roman Empire, but the introduction of a much heavier silver coin that Rome just really couldn't afford to mint made it much, much worse. The Antoninianus was originally the same fineness as the denarius, around 80 or 90%. But by the time of Gordian III, it was already down to 60. And in fact, for about 30 years, from 215 to around Gordian's death, both of those coins, the denarius and Antoninianus, circulated together. And technically, the Antoninianus was worth twice as much, but the denarius continued to be struck at a greater level of purity. And in fact, Gordian is the last emperor to strike the, much vaunted Roman denarius as a circulation issue. His successor, Philip, struck it, but only occasionally for ceremonial purposes. The last circulation denarius is that one right there of Gordian III.
Whoa, that is so, yeah, I mean, I'm saying that a lot as a comment as to what you're talking about, but it's like, it's tough to, ancient coin info is not super accessible, so it's really fun to have the coins in front of us and really understand their place in history. I guess one thing that just jumped out to me are these just at different points in his life, where he's got the beard here and then, maybe a little younger on the left two.
Yeah, so the left two are of Gordian III, the same coin as the denarius, and the right one is of his successor, Philip I.
Okay.
Philip's also known as Philip the Arab because he came from the province of Arabia Petraea, which is modern-day Jordan.
Okay.
And there's actually some interesting speculation, historical research being done today, that he might have been secretly the first Christian emperor. Because persecution of Christians not only faltered, but noticeably stopped. Philip really enforced no persecution of Christianity. And one wonders, might he secretly have been a Christian? He was certainly from a part of the empire where Christianity had taken roots. It wasn't the dominant faith by any stretch, but in the East it had taken its roots by 250.
Interesting. Oh, that's cool. Well,
Yeah.
Most of my viewers know, I mean, my name kind of gives it away, but that I'm a Christian, so good on him for not persecuting them.
Yeah.
But, a really fun, search. I probably wouldn't call it a search. It's more like a highlight of some stuff that I've bought. And
It's a good group.
Definitely some ones I'm going to be putting in the personal collection here. So thanks again for, selling them to me, but also spending the time to teach thousands about what they mean.
Yeah, love to be here.
Thanks for watching the video. Be sure to like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to Treasure Town, and get in touch with me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Also, check out my website, treasuretowncoins.com, for news and updates related to the channel and collectibles in general. Lastly, there's a link tree in the description with links to all of my other sites, as well as some affiliate links that can support the channel. But with that being said, have a great day, and I'll hope to see you on some of my videos in the future.